the universe, one's own relationship to the Absolute. This is an important step in understanding that it's all one thing, or, more accurately, it's an important step away from the belief that it's not. I would make it clear to the student asking the original question that there was no hurry, that they should take their time and develop their thoughts to fullness. I might suggest that they process their understanding by writing an essay for me in which they attempt to answer their own question, cautioning them that they must be very thoughtful and rewrite it again and again until they have it exactly the way they want it before sending it to me. I'd never see it, though, because that level of scrutiny leaves no trace of the original question. Oscar Wilde wrote, "All thought is immoral. Its very essence is destruction. If you think of anything, you kill it. Nothing survives being thought of." What he might have meant is that falseness exists only in shadow. Illumination by intellect destroys the untrue by revealing that there was never anything there to begin with. Just as light banishes shadow, scrutiny banishes illusion. The debate over free will versus predetermination provides a particularly good example of this teaching process. Students are perplexed by this question because they focus on an answer when all their attention should remain on the question. Stay with the question, I tell them. Don't worry about the answer. Just get the question right. Examine your assumptions. Soon enough, the question itself has been destroyed, and along with it, many layers of delusion. Students, understandably, wish to deepen their understanding, but it is the role of the teacher to keep them moving forward rather than standing around deepening things. Self-realization isn't about more, it's about less. The only construction required for awakening is that which facilitates demolition. Actually, I often don't reply to the email and letters sent to me at all because it is clear that the writing is the process and that no response is required. I'm being used as the target recipient in a process of spiritual autolysis in which my only role is to exist as an ideal in the student's mind. This can be a very intense and accelerated process. It is not uncommon for a writer to send me a message every day apologizing for the one they sent the day before, embarrassed that they could have been so foolish, and enthusiastically sharing their newfound level of comprehension, which, if all goes well, will be tomorrow's source of embarrassment. Still, handling email takes time, and I can only take care of 3 or 4 per hour. This morning I managed to respond to a dozen before I get too fuzzy-brained to continue. I turn off the computer and step out of my office and right into Jolene's butt. "Oh, hello, Jolene's butt," I say wittily. She turns and looks up at me. "Oh, hi. I wasn't sure if you were up here. You're so quiet." She's on all fours with a bucket and a brush, scrubbing the oak floor of the main upstairs hallway. Most of the floor is still wet, so there's no point in trying to go past her. I plunk down on the floor, back against the wall. I like watching other people work. "How's it going?" I ask. "Great," she says exuberantly. "I went to the library and read Plato's cave allegory and some commentaries on it. I've been thinking a lot about, what we discussed." "Which was?" The difference between mysticism and enlightenment." She has stopped working to talk. I indicate the uncleaned part of the floor. "I can't authorize a break." She giggles and resumes scrubbing. "I wonder why you and I might have been discussing the difference between enlightenment and mysticism," I say. "Well," she explains, "we were talking about Yamamoto Roshi and Plato's cinema." "Yeah, I remember all that. I just can't remember why I would think that this was a particularly relevant topic for you." Zen. Zen. we were talking about the differences between the Zen that sells books and the Zen that leads to enlightenment. Dang, I exclaim. That's a pretty interesting topic. What did we come up with? Well, we were talking about Plato's cinema and the difference between enlightenment and mysticism. Yeah, right, because I think you were saying, trying to show me that the books and everything I was reading about Zen. So, the Zen that sells books is about mysticism, and real Zen is about enlightenment. I don't know, she says. I mean, yeah, real Zen is about enlightenment, isn't it? Yes, I know that, but I don't know if the Zen that sells books is about mysticism, or if it's just, selling books. I guess I didn't think this part through very good. Did you think about the cinema part? She lights up. Yes, and I know the answer. Mystics stay in the theater, but the theater isn't the whole thing. It's not the final, total, most ultimate thing. Enlightenment isn't in the theater. If you want to be enlightened, you have to go up the aisle and out the exit to the sunlight and totally leave the theater. Leave the theater, I mused. That's interesting. So everybody's sitting there watching the movie. The cows, she blurted out. That's what happened to me in church. I stopped believing that the movie was really reality. That's when I undid my chains and I stood up and saw all the people I knew still sitting there, just like you said. But you haven't read Plato's Cave in a long time because your version is way funny. She has stopped scrubbing again. Maybe it's Plato's version that's way funny. Keep scrubbing. Yeah, I haven't read it in a long time. So you're saying the mystics are in the theater? Yeah, she says. But the rest of the theater isn't reality. It's just a different part of the whole fake thing. It's more real than the movie, but it's still not really real. And the mystics know that? She doesn't blurt out the answer to this, just continues working the brush in small circles. I think I hear her humming, but then I realize she's humming. No, she says in the hushed tone of one who has just unmasked a secret plot. They don't. That's it, isn't it? They're a little more awake, but they're still not awake because they think they're like totally awake, but they're still in the theater, like the light on the screen. The light in the projector isn't the real source either. It's just a tiny spark of the true light, the sun. That's what I read. So the people in chains watching the movie are like asleep, even though they don't know it. But so are the people who aren't chained anymore. Oh, wow! Like me. And maybe the mystics are the most awake of all, or maybe whoever is the most mystical is the most awake. But if they knew about the sun, about the light in the projector just being a tiny spark, then they wouldn't be in the theater. They'd be heading out. So then, they don't know either, really. Wow, I think I'm really starting to get this. So you're sitting here telling me you're not awake. That must be pretty weird for you. Because I asked you, in the park, at the lake, I asked you why you said you weren't a mystic. That's why. You are not in the theater. That's the difference. You kept going. You are out in the sunlight, in the real source. She has stopped scrubbing again. That's what awake means. That's what enlightened means. If you're not going to do the floor, then I'll have to. She starts scrubbing again. I don't know much about what mystics are all about, she continues, but that's the whole thing. No matter how great a mystic guy you are, no matter how great everyone thinks you are, if you're still in the theater, I don't think you can talk and scrub at the same time. If Sanaya came up and saw the job you're doing, she redoubles her efforts. If you're still in the theater, you're still not awake. You're still asleep, but like you're dreaming that you're awake. You still don't know what reality is, like the sun. The theater is like a dream, and so a mystic, or anyone like me who's not a mystic but not in chains either. It's something, but it's not the thing. Okay, I say. So, I'm enlightened, and that means I'm outside the theater. And the sun? Oh, yeah, she answers tentatively. But here I am, talking to you. Yeah. I wonder if I had to go through all the levels to get out. You know, first step out of the chains like you did in church, then become a little mystical, then more, until I finally became so totally mystical that I left the theater entirely. See what I mean? Did I develop and evolve spiritually inside the theater? Or did I just go straight for that path and out into the sunlight? She turns her attention to the floor while her mind chews on the question. It's no small question. Does one achieve truth realization in stages, or in a single step like the fool of the tarot deck taking a leap into the void? And, if the latter, how many steps are involved in becoming the fool that takes the leap? Oh my God! Oh my God! That's what you're saying. That's your point. This whole thing started with you saying you're not a mystic. You said I'd be disappointed because you weren't a very mystical guy. Can you do that? Can you just go right out without doing the whole mystical thing? Boy, she shines when she's happy. Good question, I reply. Offhand, I don't know. I did a bit of mystical stuff. I had experiences of undifferentiated consciousness, mystic union, on several occasions, and it had a big effect on me. So I can't say from personal experience that someone could just head right out. Get back to work. She does. I can certainly say that you don't have to rise up through the mystical ranks or progressively more refined levels of consciousness to finally graduate into the sunlight. And if I were to guess, I'd say there's no reason you couldn't do it without having first been dipped in the divine. No reason that I can think of, anyway. Of course, that's in the space of a single lifetime. Who knows what development may have occurred through numerous incarnations. But this isn't the time for all that, and the fact remains that I am not a very mystical guy. This was so cool. Is this how it always works? I ask you these questions, and I don't even think you answered them. You just somehow showed me how to answer them myself. Is that, like, your method? Is it always like this? I don't know. Hang around and find out for yourself. This is really cool. I really had a total blast going to the library and figuring all this out. It's like I was on a mission or something. I got obsessed, and it was great. I really feel like I'm learning something important. I've never really felt like that before. I've always done well in school, but I never learned anything I thought of as, like, important. Yeah, great. You've done well in school. You're learning important stuff. You're a student of Plato and all that. But this floor looks like you wiped it with a muddy sock. Didn't those Zen books at least teach you anything about being mindful in tasks? What's my next thing? She asks, completely ignoring my criticism. Do I get another assignment now? Or like another question I have to work on? What do I do now, besides the floor? Well, I don't really have anything prepared. I'll have to give it some thought. So anyway, according to this little theory of yours, do you think Yamamoto Roshi is enlightened? Or just a mystic? He's... She begins, but stops herself. Oh, gosh, I don't know. I have to think about it. Atta girl. Chapter 33. No self is true self. The man in whom Tao acts without impediment does not bother with his own interests and does not despise others who do. He does not struggle to make money and does not make a virtue of poverty. He goes his way without relying on others and does not pride himself on walking alone. While he does not